Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. For this video, we are going to be doing RF Con's The Poppy War. So, if you guys have been liking this content, don't forget, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, do all that good stuff so you guys do not miss a video. If you guys missed the review I did for Disney and Shadow, I will leave a link to it up in the top so you guys can go and watch that video. As always, if you guys have books you want me to do reviews on in the future, don't forget, leave those down in the comments. So, as always, format for the review is summary of the story, pros, cons, and my final thought and ranking. So, with all out of the way, let's hit the intro. Our story follows this 16-year-old girl, Rin, who is this peasant from the southern province of Nakara, which is the main continent this book takes place on. Rin is destined to be put into an arranged marriage, but because of her force of will and just her general personality, she decides, no, I'm going to take destiny into my own hands, and studies really hard for the Kenju, which is basically this book's version of essentially the SATs, and she gets into prestigious Singard Academy, where the top of their country go to study. So while she's studying at the academy, she pretty soon learns that she has the ability to summon the gods, and she quickly changes tracks and decides, I'm going to study to become a shaman under the lore master Jiang. So soon after, the Federation, which is the Nakara Empire's great rival, decides, let's attack them and take all their land. So Rin is forced to put all of her training as a shaman to the test in conflict in this really huge war. So during the war, Rin really starts to discover her power, and she makes one choice that'll change her life and it'll change the lives of everyone around her because of the power she can wield as the incarnate of the Phoenix goddess. Starting out our list, we have our protagonist, Rin. So there are really two main reasons I really like Rin. One is that her drive and just her personality to succeed. It is super relatable to myself, and I think it would be super relatable to anyone who read this book, because she's just pushing herself to get out of a really bad situation. Everyone knows a person like that who's just driven to make themselves better and to push themselves further in life. I always have appreciated story arcs like that. I feel like it's just relatable to everyone, and RF Con really did a good job writing Rin as the super relatable protagonist who just wants to better herself. Second reason I really like Rin as the protagonist is even with her drive to succeed and just her pure willingness to do whatever, it comes with a lot of self-doubt. Just like Annabelle, she is driven to succeed, but we see a lot of that self-doubt throughout the book. She's wondering, like, is this worth it, and am I doing the right thing? And we've also had times like that, and it's just a super relatable story arc, like I said, and it's a super relatable flaw that we overthink and question ourselves. Most of the time, it's like, no, you are doing what you need to do. And Rin's just really relatable how she goes back and forth between struggling with pushing herself and is this worth doing? And it's just also still super relatable to real life. So second pro is the use of real-world mythology in this book. So just like Rick Riordan does in his books, RF Con really uses a lot of real-world mythology as the basis and backdrop for her series. But for her series, instead of doing like some European mythology, she uses an Eastern mythology, which I really appreciate because there's not a whole ton of series that I can think of that use sort of Eastern style mythology. If you do know any series like that, please just leave them down in the comments. I would love to read more about it. But I really find it super interesting that she's exposing us to a mythology that isn't really that well explored for general books. And I really appreciate the exposure to different culture mythology throughout different books. Pro number 3 here is the use of real-world history and culture within the book. So what I mean by this is, as you're reading through the book and you get to explore a bit more of the world as it's unfolding in the book, you start to really pick up on things. If your study of history and culture in general, you'll get a general sense of, okay, one country will be an analog for other real-world country. And I appreciate that. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love a really detailed fantasy world, but I do also appreciate taking real world concepts and using them in your book. I love a bit of both, and I think she does it masterfully, and it is awesome to really read through this series, and if you know what she's referencing, you'll get it, and you'll understand where she's going with certain things. So there's only one real con in this book, and that is the pacing in this first act of the book. So the main problem I think the first act of this book has is just it's way too quick. Rin's first year basically happens in that first act, but it's only like the first maybe 150 or so pages. That might seem like a lot, but it's really not. The first act goes by really fast, and I really think this book could have benefited from slowing down slightly. I'm not saying grind to a halt. I think it should have pulled back just a bit, not only for just the pacing reasons, but also I really want to experience this world, and I feel like that first act could have been a really good spot to do that, but it just moves way too fast to do anything really important with it. Meaningfully. It just moves way too fast for me personally. Other than that, this book is fantastic. That pacing problem, if the first act had just been a bit longer and we had been able to explore more of what lore is within that first act, I think this book would have been great. That's the only thing that's holding it back for me. It's just the pacing in the first act and the fact that it moves so fast that we don't get a really good chance to understand Jiang and what he's teaching. Final thought and ranking here. Like I said in my cons, the only problem I have with this book is its first act. It moves way too fast. If it pulled back and explained more of what lore was and how the mythology worked, this book would have been great and I would have loved it. As it is, I really do like this book. That's the only con I have. Between the use of the real world mythology and the real world countries and Rin herself, this book is awesome and I recommend it to anyone who is interested in learning more about different mythologies. This, I think, is a really good starter place, and I highly recommend it. So I'm going to give RF Cons The Poppy War a 7 out of 10. So if you guys did not hear in my last video, we are going to be doing, for the next couple of weeks at least, 2 book reviews. So next week, I will be doing the sequel to this one, Dragon Republic, as well as my book review for Power Play. Again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of that content. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell and all that good stuff so you don't miss any of my videos. Again, if you guys have any book recommendations you want me to do reviews on in the future, don't forget, drop those down in the comments. If you guys have read this book before, I would be super interested in reading your own reviews of it, and if you have any other books that are like this, I would also love to get those in the comments so I can start reading them. Again guys, have a great week, and don't forget, keep on reading.